I want to talk about Reuben Foster. Reuben Foster has been signed by the Washington Redskins, despite the fact that he was arrested on Saturday, the night before a game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as a member of the San Francisco 49ers. Here are my thoughts in general about this. First of all, the woman accusing him of beating her now is also the same woman who accused him of beating her back in May and then said she lied and made it all up. This is, beyond a shadow of a doubt, a toxic relationship. If there was anybody who could get a hold of either of these people, either Reuben Foster or this woman, they would say, neither one of you should be together anymore, and neither one of you should ever be alone without an adult supervising your interaction at this point in time. It doesn't make sense to me that this relationship is continuing to be allowed to fester. It is a toxic relationship. They don't need to be around each other anymore. But here is my big issue, and this is the same thing I said about Brett Kavanaugh. In this situation, we have a woman who has admitted that she lied to authorities about Reuben Foster before. And now she is saying that he attacked her again. And why should we believe her on the face of this investigation, given the fact that we know she has been, at least in her past statements, said that she is a confirmed liar? My big issue with the way we respond to controversy in America today is we presume whatever our worldview is reflected by whatever the story is. I don't know what happened between Reuben Foster and this woman. You don't know what happened between Reuben Foster and the woman. The problem with people who say, believe all women, is some women lie. In fact, we know that in May, this woman said she lied. Now, maybe she was lying about lying. I don't know. What I do know is that when you are a lawyer, you have to deal with whether people are reliable or unreliable witnesses. This woman is the definition of an unreliable witness. We don't know what happened. Okay? We know that this relationship is so toxic that neither of these individuals should be together without adults around ever again, in my opinion. But I also don't think the risk-reward for the Washington Redskins is worth signing Reuben Foster in this situation. You are 6-5 and fighting for a playoff berth. You are saying that he is not going to play for the rest of the year. What is wrong with allowing him to clear waivers and then attempting to sign him at the end of the year if you believe that his talent exceeds his problems? I also would say this. Can you imagine what the lead story would be if Reuben Foster was white? If Reuben Foster were a white man, he would be being held up as the very definition of white privilege in America. People would be saying it doesn't matter what a white man does, he can still get a job in this country, even if he's been arrested twice in 6 months for beating up a woman. The truth of the matter is this: the NFL is a meritocracy. And one of the reasons I fundamentally reject both politics and race being thrown into sports all the time, the intersection of race, the intersection of politics, is because ultimately in a meritocracy, all that matters is whether or not you have the talent to succeed. I don't believe that anybody in the NFL gets discriminated against based on their race. I don't believe anybody in the NFL gets discriminated against based on anything but their talent. It's why the NFL and sports in general should be a model for America, and we should not be dragging politics into sports. We should be using sports as a model for what we should be doing with politics. The best man or woman wins regardless of race, gender, ethnicity, or religion. We don't spend a lot of time sitting around talking about systemic issues. There's nobody out there who's ever walked into a locker room and said our weight room isn't as good as theirs, and so we should get to start off with 5 extra points. There's nobody who's ever said, hey, our uniforms are uglier, so we should get to start off with 2 extra points. There's nobody who's ever said, hey, you're a product of a single-family household, so you should get an advantage on the field of play that others do not. Ultimately, what sports teaches you is you are responsible for yourself. I am a big believer in the primacy of individual decision-making. I might not always make the right decision. In fact, I make the wrong decision frequently. Ask my kids. Ask my wife. but I don't blame anybody else for the decisions that I make. And what we have to do in this country is allow more people to embrace the idea that the only hand you can rely on is the one at the end of your sleeve. And so, if someone is of the belief that Reuben Foster deserves a second, third, or fourth chance, it is not because of anything other than his extreme talent when it comes to football. And you may not like the fact that the Washington Redskins are signing Reuben Foster. I don't personally agree with it. It's not a risk that I would take if I were an owner. But I also appreciate the fact that what I love about sports is ultimately it's about the talent. It's about whether you can make a play or not. It's about, for a linebacker, whether you can get out on the field and perform better as a linebacker than other people. And guess what? When he plays at a high level, Reuben Foster is a first-round caliber talent at linebacker. I saw it at Alabama. I know he can do it in the NFL too. So I don't use sports as a window to project everything about society onto that story. I talked about this last week. I loved the response that I'm finally starting to see from ESPN. They let Kate Fagan go. And Kate Fagan said, when she left, she said, I had hoped at ESPN that one day we were going to be able to do a show about the intersection of gender issues and sports. And I said, a show? That might be a 3-minute story on Outside the Lines in June when there's nothing else going on. But nobody cares who is a sports fan about the intersection of sexuality and sports on a day-to-day basis. I don't care who Michael Slam slept with. I frankly don't care who Dwight Howard slept with. I care whether or not you are really good at your sport. I will admit that I cared when Jimmy Garoppolo went out with a porn star. But that's on an entertaining level, not like it's a, oh my God, society is forever changed because of this decision. And I think what people are starting to recognize is we don't need all these intersections. I don't need the intersection of women's marches and how it's implicating the world of sports. I just don't. I need sports and opinions surrounding sports. And that's my advice to everybody out there. So on the Reuben Foster front, my position in general is don't automatically believe every woman. Don't automatically believe every man. Don't automatically believe every black person or every white person or every Hispanic person or every Asian person. Look into the facts before you make a decision. And if the Washington Redskins have done a diligent investigation and they believe that Reuben Foster is not guilty of what he has been accused of, then they may well be right. The risk might be worth the reward. I don't know. It's not a risk that I would take.